questions. Kubert's on question 3. A really thoughtful response from Melissa. Quick announcement before we get started with class. Number 1, I am very excited about today's lesson, especially for students in the room who have family from the Caribbean, from Dominican Republic, from Puerto Rico, from Jamaica, from the Bahamas. Announcement number 2, do not freak out. I am recording in the back of the room. I am not leaving the Orchard Gardens. I am applying to be a certified responsive classroom teacher, and part of the application is a 30-minute video of me teaching. So I'm not leaving the school, but there is a video in the back.
So
Are we all good with that?
Okay. You're still teaching, right?
Moving on. Raise your hand, please, for a raffle. What are some theories about why people think Machu Picchu was built? Building off of yesterday. Keeper, give me one theory.
That was like a house,
A house for people. Maybe someone can expand. Basam.
it's probably, my possibility is probably for pray to the sun god.
Pray to the sun god. There was some evidence of that yesterday. Elias and then Anaisha.
For protection, so no one could invade them.
Protection so no one could invade them. Anaisha. Good. They wouldn't get conquered. Someone in my 6-0 class said high ground. I thought that was a really cool
Son of
way
God.
to say why it was good for protection. Maisa.
People to honor
Honor their sun god. Matthew, last one just because of time. I know there's a couple more hands. To be closer to the sun god, to literally physically be closer. Question 2, what do we remember about colonization? There's been a couple of places we've studied that have been colonized. Carmen?
colonization means to take over and change the country's culture and language.
Can you say that one more time a little bit louder?
Colonization means to take over and change the country's language and culture.
To take over, change the civilization's culture, language, and religion, for example. Awesome. Question 3, just for fun. If you could live in any ancient civilization that we've studied, which would you choose and why? Don't just say Egypt. Say Egypt and because I want to be a pharaoh. Keeper.
Absolute Egypt, because they're strong.
Oh, interesting. That's true. Awesome fact. Jason.
Mali, because I'm trying to be rich.
You're trying to be Mansamusa's son?
Yeah.
Maisa?
What did you say?
Molly.
Oh, you two, I want to be part of Ali and I want to be because I want to take over.
Basam, last one.
Nubia, because it's mostly my home country and also they have a strong economy globally.
That's very true. Quick and easy raffle. Can someone read our objective of the day so we know what it is that we're doing? Sebastian?
Students will be able to describe the culture and way of life and
Of the
Taino
Taino.
people and the impact that colonization had on their history.
Perfect, Sebastian. All right. So, do know is done. What's coming up next? Raise your hand if you know who this is.
Yes.
Free hand. Christopher Columbus. What do we remember about him? We haven't talked about him since October. What do we remember about him? Amy. Killed Native Americans. Maisa?
He took over Indian.
Native Americans' land. Absolutely. Anaisha. Well, it had something to do with Thanksgiving. So when we say Native Americans, Americans, we're talking which continents? Continents. North America talked about in October that he never actually landed in North America. He landed in the Caribbean.
Wait, what?
He thought it was
He thought that he was in India. So he called people. But here's the interesting thing.
they're not Indian.
These are who? These are, please listen up because this might be brand new to you.
Not
These are Native Americans, not Indians. They were called Indians for a long time. And these are not the people that Christopher Columbus met. The people that Christopher Columbus met are the Taino people
Oh yeah, I knew this.
because he landed in the Caribbean. And the Caribbean had Taino people. North America had Native, and he never made it to where? North America. So I need help reading this to help us a little bit understand what it is that I'm talking about, because this is brand new information. Reham.
Everyone remembers that Christopher Columbus sailed across the Atlantic in 1492, and most people probably remember that his ships were the Nina and the Pinta and the Santa Cruz. But can you remember the people that Columbus met when he landed on the first island of the Caribbean?
The first natives that Christopher Columbus met, whom he thought were Indians, since he had no idea the Americas existed, were the Taino people. We know about them because of the records left by Columbus and the Spanish. Although these people were almost totally destroyed by European colonization or the takeover and control of another country. So, today we are going to be talking about the Taino people that were in Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, and if you are Dominican or Puerto Rican or Haitian or Jamaican or Cuban, you might have
Ancestors.
that word. And I'm going to explain how crazy the history is today. On your paper and also on the board, there is a picture. And this picture comes from a picture that the Spanish drew of the Taino people. So can we learn a lot about the Taino people by analyzing this photo?
Yes.
How many observations am I looking for?
2.
2 observations and 1 inference. You will be able to talk to a partner after this. Give me 1 minute to come up with observations. You might see more clearly on the board. And 1 inference. Inside. 30 more seconds. You'll be able to chat in 15 seconds. I got Carbon's eyes. Thank you, Janita. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, Giselle. And Jadiel. If you're finishing your last thought, I just need your ears open. For your turn and talk with a partner, you're going to come up with 1 inference that you can make about Taino culture. Maybe it's the way they live. Maybe it's the things they eat. Maybe it's something about the resources or technology that they have. But what I want you to do is turn and talk to a partner and come up with an inference or something. What is an inference? Raise your hand. We've been doing this all
Educated
year.
guess.
Not you.
Raise your hand.
Say that one more time. Educated guess. An educated guess about Taino culture. All I gave you was a picture. I didn't give you any text to read. What voice level should we be at?
1.1.
1.5. I'm talking out of 3. When you hear the chime, what should you do? Look up and be quiet.
Go back to your seat.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. Ready to talk. Thank you, Keybert, for getting up to go find a partner. Amy's turning around. Rehan's turning around.
Sure. Thank you. I'm already in there. So I think I infer that colonize exactly, and then and they don't have a house to live in. How you spell colonize?
Thank you, Basan, for heading back to your seat. Thank you, Maisa, for heading back to your seat. Matthew looks ready to go. I got Sophie's eyes, Sebastian's eyes. These are Taino people. Raise your hand. What is one inference you can make about them? One thing about maybe the way they eat, maybe the climate that they live in. What are some inferences you came up with your partner? Anaisha. Weapons. Maisa. Fruit or food? Good. What food, for example? Fish. I see a lot of fish. Reham. Natural resources. Keybert. I love that. Can you repeat what you just said, Keybert?
Maybe they like all live together.
Does it seem like the Taino people are very community-based? Yeah, because you don't just see one person here. You see more than one, right? Multiple people, and do they look like they live separately or communally?
Communally.
Great. What else do we notice? Sebastian and then Bassam. Something with like food and cooking. Bassam?
I think it's like some like usually the houses like look and probably like the way they build their houses like quick and simple.
What do you notice the resources are for building their house? I only got one hand. Amy. Wood. So what can we infer about the land? Fertile. Awesome. Sorry. Maisa.
They're also okay, and they live a bunch of
True. Embarrassingly, are they wearing many clothes?
No.
So does that mean that they're poor?
No.
Raise your hand. What can you infer from the lack of heavy clothing? Rihan. Oh, interesting. Maybe there's not as many big animals for clothing. Bassam?
It's possibly like that's the culture they live, the way that they dress.
Right, but why is that the culture, Elias?
Maybe the weather.
What about the weather?
It's hot a lot.
It is hot a lot. We can infer that the weather must be warm. The climate must be warm. Sophie, last comment.
They might not be wearing clothes than now.
True. Absolutely. And they don't need them because the weather must be really... If you're from the Dominican Republic, how would you describe the weather there?
Very hot.
Very hot, right?
Oily.
So these are the Taino people who lived on that land before who came?
Columbus.
Columbus. Sue. How many video questions are there?
6.
What's the first one?
True or false? Is the 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue?
Do we already know if that's true or false? Let's find out.
You've probably heard of Christopher Columbus or had a day off of school to celebrate Columbus Day. There's a lot of information out there about Columbus, but not all of it is true. Before we dive into our video lesson today, Let's see what you've heard before by playing a game of true and false. I'll say a statement, and you decide whether it's true or false. Don't worry if you're not sure, this is not a quiz. It's just to see what you already know. Let's start with one you've probably heard in a rhyme. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. True or false? That one's true. Columbus sailed
Brain
across
is
the
writing
Atlantic
it down.
from
I know
Spain
Alicia's
to the
writing it
Caribbean
down.
in 1492. Let's try another one. Columbus believed the earth was flat.
He thought it was a pear.
Columbus knew the earth was round. He just thought it was much tinier than it really is. Okay, let's do another one. Columbus was the first European to set foot on the Americas. That one's also false. We've got really good evidence that Norse sailors explored Canada centuries before Columbus sailed the seas. All right, let's do one last true-false statement. When he arrived in the Americas, Columbus thought he was in Asia. That's actually true. Columbus sailed across the Atlantic, arrived in the Caribbean, and began to call the people there Indians because he believed he had made it to Asia. Even though you've heard of Columbus before, you may not have heard a whole lot about the people that he called Indians. When we study history, it's important to think about lots of different perspectives. That's why in this video lesson, we're going to think about Columbus's point of view when he was exploring the Americas, but we're also going to think about the people who lived there when he arrived. They were called the Taínos. Let's dive in and learn more about them. Taínos are a group of people who are indigenous to the Caribbean islands. Indigenous means they were the first people to live there. Taínos lived in mostly peaceful chiefdoms, ruled by chiefs known as caciques. Their villages were organized around a central plaza where celebrations and other public rituals could take place. They enjoyed singing and dancing at these celebrations and decorating their bodies with jewelry and paint. Outside of the central plaza stood their houses, which were made of straw and palm leaves woven together. The adults worked hard to get food for their families because it was important to them to raise strong and healthy children. The women did most of the farming, and the men did more of the hunting for small animals and fishing. The Taínos believed in multiple gods who controlled nature and in spirits called zemis, which might have represented their ancestors. They also played a ceremonial ball game called bate, which was connected to their religion. Some historians also believe that it was a peaceful way of resolving conflict. Instead of fighting, they played the ball game to determine a winner. They played on a field like this one. What did the zemis and the bate?
Raise your hand, please. Who else had a game that was very much a part of their culture that involved a rubber ball? Jason. The Mayans as well.
Bate have in common. Both were connected to the Taino religion, which is important to everyday life in the Taino culture. One way we can understand what was important to people in the past is by looking at records they've left behind. Tainos used an early form of writing called petroglyphs, which they carved into rocks. If they took the time to create a symbol to represent something, that probably means it was very important to them. Can you look at these symbols and find one you think represents something important to the Taino culture? You may have focused on the sun, which was important to them for growing food, or on symbols that looked like babies or children, because those were important too. Or maybe you focused on the symbols that looked like zemis. All of those are great answers. While the Taino people were raising children, worshiping their gods, and farming, across the Atlantic Ocean, a man was preparing to set sail. His name was Christopher Columbus, and we're going to think about his perspective next. He was an explorer who wanted to find a new route to Asia over the sea.
So take a look at this map. This is the map that Christopher Columbus was working off of. Raise your hand, please. What is completely missing from the map? Well, first of all, what continent is this?
Asia. Africa. Europe.
Great. Raise your hand, please. What continents are completely missing? Rehan. Great. So he thought if he left Spain and crossed which ocean, he would reach specifically what country?
India.
India. But instead, he landed in the Caribbean. Caribbean. And he didn't meet Indian people, he met Taínos.
Wait, Miss,
Yes.
I just realized he's also missing one American. It was also Australia, but I don't think it was.
It was actually on the map.
Oh, really?
But they didn't.
Question 1, you can shut them out. True or false?
True.
2,
False.
3,
False.
4.
True.
True.
You said 3.
4.
She said 4.
5,
Taínos.
6.
No.
They were,
Polytheistic.
raise your hand, which means what?
No.
Polytheistic.
No.
Many.
Can you raise your hand? What does polytheistic mean, Matthew? Many gods. Awesome. All right. While we read, I have a lot of interesting information about the Taino people and also an explanation for why many people in the room are the way that they are. If you have family from the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico, definitely make sure you are paying close attention to this history because it explains a lot about today. Elias, I will start. You will be second. Introduction. Before I read, I will never ask you to do anything that I cannot do. What do you notice about my paper? Annotated, right? Our annotation focus are who are the Taínos? Who are the Taínos? The Taino are pre-Columbian indigenous Amerindian inhabitants of the Greater Antilles Islands, which include Cuba, Hispaniola, Haiti, and Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, and the Bahamas. The seafaring Taínos are relatives of the Arawakan peoples of South America. Elias, go ahead.
The Taino culture was nearly destroyed in the 16th century.
Louder.
The Taino culture was nearly destroyed in the 16th century, decimated by genocide, introduced disease, and forced assimilation into the plantation economy that Spain imposed in its Caribbean colonies. With the importation of African slave workers, the Spaniards who first arrived in the Bahamas, Cuba, and Hispaniola and
Pause. Please pay careful attention to this next sentence. Lance, can you say that again? The Spaniards, the Spanish people,
The Spaniards who first arrived in the Bahamas, Cuba, and Hispaniola in 1492 and later Puerto Rico in 1508 did not bring women.
did not bring women.
They took many Taino wives in civil marriages and had mestizo children.
Raise your hand. What does mestizo mean? You might be able to use a context clue here. It said they took many Taino wives in civil marriages and had mestizo children. What does mestizo mean? Assam,
It could possibly mean the Taino children.
are they 100% Taino?
No.
What are they?
Mixed Taino.
Mixed. What are the two mixes?
White and
Taino and Spanish and white. Do you think it was a mistake? Did they forget the Spanish women back in Spain?
No.
Raise your hand, please. Why do you think they left the Spanish women back in Spain and the Spanish men married the Taino women? Why do you think they might have done that based off of what we know about colonization? Reham.
Maybe they wanted the women to stay and the men so that way, like, when they married the Taino women there would be more Spain, like, blood.
Spanish blood.
And it sort of makes it like good.
And what happens to the Taino blood? Taino and Spanish. Eventually, what's going to happen to all the Tainos? They're going to disappear. They've either been killed, they're going to be no more, there's disease, and they're reproducing with the Taino women so that all of the children are now mixed and have Spanish blood. So if anyone here is originally from the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico or the Bahamas or Cuba, you probably have what blood in you? Taino and Spanish. How? How? Raise your hand. Someone repeat what we just learned. How? Jadiel.
Spanish people were reproducing with the Taino people.
Spanish men came to DR, for example, didn't bring any Spanish women, and what were they doing, Jedio? So all of the children were not 100% Taino. They now have 50% what? Spanish blood. So are there any 100% Taino people anymore?
No.
Probably not. Keep it. Head up. Who would like to read next? We're on lifestyle. Lifestyle. Amy.
And the center of typical Taino village.
Yukayek.
Was a black fort used for various social activities such as games, areas of sports, and public ceremonies. Houses around this fort that Taino created a ceremonial ball game called Tapu. Between a post and of cemetery players and flowers on the rubber ball, but was also used to offer ammunition to the community. Taino social class decided regarding the
Taino social class. As you turn over your paper, can someone raise their hand and remind me what is social class? What is social class? Sebastian? Level of people's wealth and also thinking of a word with a P. Power. Awesome. So we have the Naboria, which are the common people. What's a common person? Regular person. Thank you, Reina. Nit-Taino are the sub-chiefs. The Bohik are the priests. And fourth, we have the cacique, the chieftains. So who is the most powerful? The chieftains. The fact that the priests are second in power and wealth, what do you think the Taino people value? Gods. Specifically, well, we don't know that yet. Religion, right? Multiple gods. So clearly, religion is really important to these people. How many of you have ever sat in a hammock, or been to a barbecue, or been on a canoe? All three of those things came from the Taino people. You know what? You know a hurricane?
Yeah.
There's a lot of what in a hurricane?
Wind.
Wind and
Rain.
rain. People in Europe don't really have hurricanes. So the word hurricane hadn't really existed. But in the Americas, we have a lot of hurricanes. So the word huracan comes from the also barbacoa is the word for barbecue. Hamaka is the word for, and it all comes from the Taino people. I'm going to let you read silently and independently for the next 6 minutes about the food, about the technology, and about the religion. You're definitely going to want to get down to the religion part because they did not human sacrifice. They did this fun thing where they vomited
Ew.
as part of their religion on purpose.
They vomited what? Their food?
Ooh, Raina has a good guess. What is it? Maybe something about cleansing out the bad spirits? I don't know. I am setting a timer. I am setting a timer for 6 minutes. I would really love if you could get through the section about the food, the technology, and the religion. We'll circle back in 6 minutes. Questions for me? Eva, do you want to go to the standing desk and go to sleep? Or do you want to take lunch? 6 minutes. Great. Those of you that got to the religion part, was Raina right about the vomiting for cleansing?
Yeah.
Yes. Those of you who also got to the end of the religion part, fascinatingly, raise your hand. What god was one of the most important gods to the Tainos? And the answer is not sun. Yucca. How many of you have ever had yucca frita? Really yummy. Can someone make a connection? What other ancient civilization also had a god of another food? Does anyone remember who else had a god of a food, not the sun? Basam?
I'm just going to take a guess, maybe Mesopotamia?
Not Mesopotamia. Egypt? Not quite. The Mayans. What were the Mayans obsessed with?
Oh,
Corn. Very good, Maisa.
they had a king.
The Mayans were obsessed with corn. Their most important god was the god of corn. Aztecs, the most important god was the god of the sun. And then now with the Tainos, the god of the yucca. Awesome. Moving along. For your exit ticket today, you have options. I am not going to tell you what question to answer. You are going to be able to choose that on your own. Because it is the end of the year, and because some of you are missing assignments, it is extra credit. By extra credit, I mean the work that you complete, I will find another assignment that you are missing, and I will replace it with this one. Are we on the same page? Whatever missing assignment you might have will be replaced by this assignment, and you have choice. Choice number one, and it looks like you have this assignment maybe in Miss Kurtz's class. A journal entry. Dear diary, you are writing a diary entry as if you were a person from what civilization? Maybe you're going to talk about the canoes. The canoes that hold up to how many people? 150. The majority of the canoes only held how many people? I think I heard it. 20. 15 to 20. Maybe you talk about the food. Maybe you talk about that fun vomiting thing they're doing with their religion. Maybe you talk about the architecture of your house that you read about. Your question? Your assignment should be 5 to 7 sentences long if you are writing a journal entry. The second option, which is on the back, is a standard claim evidence reasoning. Who are the Taino people? That was your annotation focus. Who are the Taino people? And make sure to talk about 2 of the following. Can someone raise their hand and read the things that you should be talking about, but you only need to talk about 2? Amy. Louder. Are all of these things in your reading? So am I going to be collecting any of your readings today? No. You're not putting them in the bin. You have actually, with my alarm going off, 5 minutes to start this assignment before mass break. Do you have to do both sides?
No.
No. Choose option 1, the diary entry, or option 2, the standard claim evidence reasoning like we've been doing all year. I am coming around to collect raffle tickets, so go ahead and leave them in the top right-hand corner of your desk. You have about 4 minutes until we line up for mass break to be early, if not on time. Giselle and Matthew are in the last 5 minutes. Good job, your next teacher.
put in.